Iran announced it would reimpose the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. It looks like this is starting again. Let's take a proper look at it today. Here we go. According to Tasnim News, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy said in a statement that several hours earlier, multiple ships tried to pass through the Strait of Hormuz without authorization, ignoring Iran's orders to use pre-approved routes and turning off their systems, thereby threatening maritime security. One ship received warnings and warning shots and stopped. Reportedly, following this incident, the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Navy, due to security threats from foreign interference, the Strait of Hormuz will be closed until further notice and until the United States leaves the region. No ships may pass. In the end, the Strait of Hormuz has been closed again. This time, the United States did not even launch an airstrike first. The closure was declared simply because ships passed through routes they had not designated. Earlier, the United States and Iran signed a mid-June ceasefire, agreeing to ensure civilian ships safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz for 60 days. At that time, the international community expected that tensions in the Middle East would ease to some extent, and international oil prices quickly showed signs of stabilizing. Over time, both sides started interpreting the agreement differently. The United States maintained the position that all merchant ships should be able to freely use existing international routes, while Iran argued that it could only guarantee the safety of ships using routes approved by its own government. In other words, while the strait was open, Iran meant that they would decide how ships could pass through. Iran repeatedly made this position public, warning again and again that it could not guarantee the safety of ships sailing outside the designated routes without prior approval. This placed heavy pressure on international shipping and oil transport companies, making route selection a political issue. The United States and Western countries protested, claiming these measures infringed on the freedom of international maritime navigation, while Iran argued they were necessary for its security and honor. The gap between the two sides' positions did not narrow over time, and the situation remained unstable, where even a minor clash could jeopardize the entire agreement. As tensions rose, a clash over the shipping route occurred in the strait, leading Iran to justify a tougher stance and ultimately block the Strait of Hormuz. Prior to the blockade, Iran decided to attack ships passing through the strait. According to U.S. Central Command, around 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard openly attacked a Cyprus-flagged container ship in the Strait of Hormuz. The Central Command stated that as a result of Iran's attack, one civilian crew member from the ship is missing. A fire broke out on board, and the engine room was severely damaged, making it impossible for the ship to sail. Central Command stressed that Iran was previously blamed for attacks on merchant ships and given another chance to comply with the MOU, but failed again. As merchant ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz continue to come under attack and Iran has officially declared the closure of the strait, the United States has determined that it can no longer simply watch the situation unfold. The U.S. Central Command reported a civilian merchant ship was attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, with crew missing and the vessel damaged, and said it had launched more airstrikes against Iran. The United States calls this attack a direct threat to civilian vessels and international maritime traffic and has started operations to weaken Iran's military capabilities. The airstrikes were carried out mainly in several regions in southern Iran, and immediately after the attack, there were multiple reports from the area of large explosions and flames being witnessed. According to Reuters, explosions were confirmed in strategically important areas such as Asaluya, Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, Sirik, and Keshum. These areas are key to Iran's energy production and naval operations, attracting major international attention. In particular, Asaluya is home to Iran's key energy industry hub and its largest oil refinery, which is connected to the world's largest South Pars gas field. Since this area is home to key facilities that support Iran's oil and natural gas production and exports, it is assessed that even minor damage here could impact energy supplies. Bushehr is also a very significant area. It is home to Iran's only commercially operating nuclear power plant, so it is known as a place with very strict security at all times. Bandar Abbas is a port city with a key Iranian naval base and, bordering the Hormuz region, holds significant military importance. With explosions reported simultaneously at these strategic locations, there is ongoing analysis that this U.S. airstrike is intended to put pressure on both Iran's military facilities and its energy infrastructure. Earlier, President Trump officially declared the ceasefire over. President Trump wrote on his social media, Truth Social, that the Islamic Republic of Iran asked us to continue talks, and while we agreed, the US firmly stated that the ceasefire with Iran had ended. Meanwhile, Iran also responded immediately to the US airstrikes with retaliation. This attack, too, targeted US military bases deployed throughout the Middle East. The countries where attacks were reported included Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan, all countries where the US has operated military bases for a long time. The region hosts many U.S. Air Force, Navy, air defense units, and logistics facilities, making it a key Middle East operations hub. By targeting these bases, Iran has made it clear that if the U.S. continues its military actions, American facilities across the Middle East will no longer be safe zones. When the attack started, air defenses in each country activated, and local reports said interceptor missiles were launched and air raid sirens sounded in multiple areas. As tensions quickly escalated, Kuwait and Bahrain, the Jordanian Ministry of Defense issued a series of safety notices urging citizens to remain calm and evacuate to safe places nearby. In some countries, alert levels and military and police patrols at public facilities and major roads have been raised. Additionally, tensions around the Strait of Hormuz are unlikely to be resolved soon. To resolve the situation, Iran and Oman held talks to discuss ways to ensure the safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, but they ultimately failed to find common ground on the key issues. The biggest obstacle was the difference in interpretation of Article 5 of the previous Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. The article states Iran will ensure safe passage for merchant ships between the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman and waive transit fees for 60 days. However, the US and Iran interpret this provision very differently. The United States insists merchant ships on international routes should pass freely without extra restrictions, while Iran says ships in its waters must use designated routes and get prior approval for safety. As interpretations of the same agreement differ, the talks ended without resolving the key issues. According to sources familiar with the negotiations, CNN reported that Oman also proposed a new compromise. It is reported that the proposal involves dividing the Strait of Hormuz into two routes, a southern route and a northern route. The southern route, which passes through Oman's territorial waters, would allow free movement as before, while the northern route, passing through Iranian territorial waters, would require prior approval from Iran. However, this proposal also failed to satisfy both sides. The United States worried about restrictions on freedom of international maritime traffic, while Iran felt its authority over the waters wasn't fully recognized. What are their positions? Because the main issues are still unresolved, the conflict over the Strait of Hormuz will likely persist for some time. It's clear why the United States is responding so strongly to the Strait of Hormuz issue. For the United States, the Strait of Hormuz is more than just a Middle Eastern strait. A large share of global maritime crude oil shipments and most Qatari LNG are transported to the world market through this route. If the Strait of Hormuz is blocked for an extended time, international crude oil and natural gas supplies could be severely disrupted, quickly causing a surge in energy prices and global inflation. They recognize this situation itself as an issue directly related to national security. In addition, the United States has maintained freedom of navigation as a core principle in the Gulf region for decades. If a country were to control international maritime routes or require permission for passage, there are concerns this could happen in other strategic straits. This is also why the United States is highly sensitive to this issue. Militarily, the Strait of Hormuz is key to U.S. Middle East strategy. The U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain oversees the Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, and Arabian Sea to ensure safe passage for oil tankers and merchant ships. If U.S. influence in the Strait of Hormuz declines, U.S. forces' operational capabilities in the Gulf may also suffer. Allied countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE, which have long cooperated on security, may face more pressure on their defense systems. The United States sees the Strait of Hormuz issue as something that could affect not just regional conflict, but the global economy and international order, and shows no signs of backing down.